The UFC started 2026 off with a bang. Two numbered events, 2 weeks in a row. We were living high on that UFC buzz. Life was good. But like all things in life, all good things must come to an end, which includes numbered events for the month of February. So now it's back to the Apex for us, back to zero anticipation cards, back to Apex slop for a whole month. Now you'd think coming off those two pay-per-view cards, the UFC would at least ease us back into an Apex card. I guess they just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and be done with it. Anyway, there are a few decent fights on the card, which we'll be talking about, as well as the not so decent fights on the card, because I know you come here for the best picks on YouTube, so that's what you're going to get. Let's get right into it. First fight of the night, Priscilla Cachoeira versus Claudia Segula. Now, we've all seen Cachoeira lose over and over and over. She's got 7 losses on her record, a lot of those in the UFC. You can see right there, 5-7 UFC record. I think at this point, it's a safer bet to bet on the new young prospect instead of Cachoeira, who we know is overall a loser. Moving on, Muin Gafarov versus Jacob Wicklets. Now, if you can beat Patchy Mix, you can definitely beat Muin Gafarov. That's all you really need to know about this one. Wicklets is going to get this one done. Too bad, Muin Gafarov. Moving on. This one is actually a low-key WMMA banger on the prelims right here. Kong Wang versus Eduardo Mora. Now, the hardcores know this one's one to watch. And not because Mora is exciting, it's because Kong Wang is exciting and Mora is a good opponent. So this one, you don't see a matchup two prospects against each other when they're outside of the top 10, but that's what's going on here. It's a pretty good fight. I'm excited for it. I think Wang is just going to be a little bit too much for Mora. Wang has that finishing potential. Her only loss is when she made a mistake. I think she will learn from that, and she's going to put the beating on Mora. This one here, Javid Basharat versus Gianni Vasquez. Vasquez was an extremely short notice opponent. I was picking Basharat to win in his original fight. Who was he first? So he was supposed to be fighting Said Nurmagomedov, and I was picking him to win that one. So if I think you can beat Nurmagomedov, Vasquez is not going to be any issue. There's a reason Vasquez wasn't already in the UFC, and Basharat's just got too much of a skill gap difference. It's gonna be pretty obvious why Vasquez hadn't been signed before this fight. But I mean, you do what you got to do to get in the UFC. Hopefully Vasquez gets an easier opponent his next time out. Basically a free win for Basharat at this point. Moving on, Bruna Brazil versus Ketlin Souza. Now, this one might seem like a toss-up at first, but bear with me. Bruna Brazil, she's kind of a one-hit wonder. She had the one knockout and then never again. And then she wins and loses, wins and loses. She's a 50-50 fighter. Ketlin Souza might have a few more losses on her record, but her losses are by split decision, whereas Bruna Brazil's losses are unanimous decision. So I think this is going to be one of those 50-50 fights where Souza gets the edge and Brazil gets the loss. Nikolai Veretennikov versus Nico Price. Now, if you guys have paid attention to Price's booking over the past couple years, basically the UFC only books Nico Price fights that they want him to lose. So I'm not sure why the UFC wants to elevate Veretennikov, but the UFC is very confident that Veretennikov can get this one done, and I am too. Nico Price going to get another element in the UFC. Next up, Alex Morono versus Daniil Danchenko. My boy Danchenko is getting this one for sure. He might even be the lock of the card. I did a whole video about this guy. He's the future of the division, and he's really exciting to watch. Can't wait for this one. Moving on, the main card opener, Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. Now, we all know Jacoby's a vet. He's a decent fighter, pretty decent striking. He's always right outside the rankings. He can compete with a lot of guys, can't quite get into the top 10. What do we know about Julius Walker? He's got a pretty good record, but if you actually look at his fights, he's the only fighter in the UFC that fought Rafael Cerqueira and did not finish Rafael Cerqueira. So this guy has zero finishing potential. Because basically, if you don't know who Rafael Secura is, he's terrible, and everyone that fights him finishes him, except for Julius Walker, which means Julius Walker is going to be in a skill for skill battle against Dustin Jacoby, and he's going to lose that battle for sure. Jacoby's getting the W here. Next up, Gene Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. Gene Matsumoto versus the better Basharat brother. Stumbled over that one a little bit. Don't worry about it. This one is low key. You know, if you know, you know. The hardcores know. This is like a Highlander. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. There can be only one. It's a battle for the undisputed bantamweight pillow-fisted prospect award. These guys, they have almost limitless potential, but extremely limited punching power. I see Matsumoto being scrappier, but Basharat being more skilled. And I think Basharat's skill is going to win out the day against Matsumoto's scrappiness. But this one is actually probably the fight I'm most looking forward to on the card. And whoever wins is going to be a really good prospect moving forward. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. This fight just cracks me up because it's like 2 jobbers accidentally got booked against each other because the jobbers are supposed to lose, like we were talking about earlier. Nico Price is a jobber. He got booked to lose a fight to someone. But what happens? It's like the booker was like, what happens if we just book 2 jobbers against each other? For science, let's see what happens. So they make this fight, and now we have to break this fight down. So if you don't know, Oleksiejczuk has been fighting with the Fighting Nerds, and since going to their camp, he's been doing pretty good. He's got some momentum going. I think he's on a 2-fight finish streak where he's won both those fights by finish. On the flip side, Marc-Andre Barriault is Canadian, so that's a pretty big negative, and he's also 1-4 in his last 5. I think Oleksiejczuk definitely gets this one done pretty easily. Next up, Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. Now, last week, we looked at a fighter who came into the UFC, fought a ranked fighter, lost that fight, and then got ranked in the rankings at heavyweight. This is the same story. Kuniev came in, fought Curtis Blades, lost, and somehow got ranked in the UFC off of that loss. To be fair, he had a very close fight with Curtis Blades, but still curious how these guys are getting ranked off of losing. Anyway, Jailton Almeida gets a chance to prove definitively, once and for all, if he is truly the fat guy strangler in the UFC. We saw Almeida versus Curtis Blades, who was Kuniev's past opponent, and Blades did beat Almeida, but Almeida showed that his wrestling, at least offensive wrestling, was probably a little bit better than Blades's. So I think if you can give Blades problem in the wrestling department, I don't think Kuniev's going to be much of a problem. I think the fat guy strangler moniker will live true in this one, and Almeida is going to get it done by submission. Next up, Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi. The young versus the old. Albazi has an amazing record, 17-2, but it really should be 16-3. We all know he lost that fight a couple years ago to Kai Car-France. So he kind of exposed himself in that loss, and then he just got completely outclassed by Brandon Moreno. It's almost like he's been fraud checked twice, and at this point, I don't think we can trust him to beat a high-level flyweight in the UFC. And Horiguchi looked amazing in his return to the UFC last time up. I think Horiguchi's got this one in the bag. He's just going to be way too skilled. Albazi's way too one-dimensional. And that one dimension, he's not even like the best at it. So that's really hard when you're one-dimensional and not the best at that one thing. Moving on to the main event of the evening, Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira. This one was a really tough one to pick because there's pretty good arguments for either guy winning. Oliveira is an exciting up-and-coming prospect. Bautista is a proven mainstay of the top of the bantamweight division. So what's going to happen in this one? I don't think Oliveira has done anything to prove to me that he can compete at the top levels at 135. Whereas Bautista just came off, at least even though he lost to Umar, it was a competitive fight with Umar. And we've seen him win other fights in the past. We saw him beat Jose Aldo, who he did things to Jose Aldo we never thought we would see done to Jose Aldo. Just held him against the cage for 15 minutes. He's got that Marab tactic in his back pocket if he really needs it. And unless he's fighting a high-level grappler like Umar, he can always resort to that. And on top of that, he's just an all-around good fighter. I think Oliveira is more of a one-dimensional fighter, whereas Bautista has more tools to win, and Bautista has more UFC experience and more high-level UFC experience. I think also, coming off the loss to Umar, I think Bautista is the kind of guy, when you lose a fight like that, it doesn't demoralize you. It motivates you. He's going to go back into the gym following that loss and work even harder to improve. I think we're going to see the best Bautista we've ever seen, and Oliveira is going to he's going to be the sacrificial lamb, unfortunately. So going with Bautista to win. There you go. My quick and dirty picks. Hope you make some money.